And ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, welcome to another episode of The Shutter Show. My name is Ken Stacknick. This is my co-host,
David Marlowe.
And David, we are here to talk today about the 1988 film directed by Stan Winston, Pumpkinhead. How you doing today, David?
You know, Ken, living the dream. I'm doing pretty solid. It's been a little crazy, but I finally got myself back into the scenic carpentry scene.
Great.
I've got a new job that literally starts tomorrow, and it's a much larger shop with a much larger crew. I believe some of the sets that they've built are things like a whole bunch of Ariana Grande music videos. I think right now they're working on a Billie Eilish video. So yeah, they do a lot of what my last shop did: commercials, television shows, but they also do a crap ton of music videos, which I think is pretty cool.
Cool.
So, but yeah, how about you, Ken? How you doing, bud?
Oh, not too bad. Settling in things here. I got some changes coming up, but nothing has been finalized yet. So I'm crossing my fingers, but not getting too hopeful because, well, that's how this industry works.
Yeah, I find that it's, at least in this day and age, it's good to just hold your breath for a little while.
Indeed. Now, David, had you seen Pumpkinhead before, or was this a new film for you?
I had seen this a couple of times a long time ago. Back, God, this was on this like old school sci-fi channel constantly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So anytime, and this is one of those types of movies where it's not hyper gory and there's not a lot of foul language. There's no nudity. So they could pretty much show this film relatively uncut on the sci-fi channel. So,
couple of shots
they showed it fine. Yeah. Like there's like the death of the character Maggie. I like that's a pretty intense moment when Pumpkinhead is playing with her. It like that gets kind of rough, but it's outside of that. Like as a kid, it would always pop up on the Sci-Fi Channel, and anytime it came on, I'd be like, well, I'm not doing anything right now as a child, so I will sit here and watch one of the few good things that's on at the moment. But yeah, no, since then, it'd been a while since I'd seen it, and I got to say, like, I am very. Oh, there's a fly. There's a little bit of cross over the camera. These flies are getting real bad.
Oh no, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. So yeah, no, but I will say, like, I am very impressed by the transfer of this film that Shudder's brought. I think it had like two separate collector's editions. One was like a DVD edition, the other was Blu-ray. But yeah, no, picture quality is amazing. Yeah, what about you, Ken? When did you see this?
So this was a film that I saw, I want to say 8-9 years ago. It had always been a film that I knew as a footnote because of Stan Winston's involvement in it. But it was just one of those movies that I always saw at the Blockbuster, but I didn't usually rent. And then when I started some work on a creature feature of my own writing, this was one of the many films that ended up on the research list. And watching it again now, I think this movie suffers from the reverse Jaws syndrome, which when they made Jaws, the problem was Bruce, the shark, didn't work. And as a result, they didn't show it because it mostly looked like a hot pile of garbage. The problem with this is Stan Winston brought in all of his boys. And it's Stan Winston.
Yeah. And Stan Winston didn't actually do any work on the monster himself.
Well, all right. So he didn't do any of the mechanical work, the engineering. Um, at this point, him and his team had already done Predator and Aliens and a myriad of other films. So they have a long resume, a well of experience to pull from. But in this particular case, because Stan was doing so much of the pre-production and all of the work that goes into getting a film up and running, he wasn't involved that much on that side, but he's bringing in all of his A players. And let's not forget, all of those A players are working for Stan Winston, and they know this is like their shot, where normally when Stan gets a job, he is the coordinator. He is the guy at the top. This is a chance for somebody else in that shop to take that job because Stan is now directing. That is a huge opportunity. If you are known in the effects industry to be the guy that Stan goes to when Stan does his stuff, you are good for the rest of your career. So that's where everyone's coming from making this. And I think as much as I enjoy Pumpkinhead, I think part of the reason this movie isn't a classic, it's a cult classic, but not a classic, is because the puppet and the animatronic work is so good, they show it too much because it works. But as a result, it works less.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that they show Pumpkinhead in the opening scene. I don't think you should. It should be a force. It should be the malevolent thing. It should be the je ne sais quoi of what's going on in the movie, and not, well, it's Pumpkinhead.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that,
yeah, Krasinski does the exact, I think has the same problem in both Quiet Place and Quiet Place 2. I know when that movie started, Krasinski said, I want to see the creature as little as possible. But then ILM got involved and it looked amazing. And he showed the monsters too much. And I get why, because they look great. But that doesn't mean you should show them. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Well, it kind of like, because I agree with you to a point, but I think a little differently. Because like, I agree, like, yes, they show it too much. And I think this film suffers from the fact that it both suffers and benefits from the fact that it is directed by Stan Winston.
Yes.
Because take American Werewolf in London, for example. You have them doing all of this amazing work on the transformation scene. And the creators of all of those effects talk about how disappointing it was to literally just do a couple of shots and then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Were they directing that scene would not be nearly as good. And in this case, Stan Winston, somebody whose speciality is creature effects. He wants to show you as much of the creature as possible. And I think that really, and I agree, that is definitely a detriment to this kind of film where you have a creature that has lore and legend built up around it. Where people talk about it, like, even when it's just not around, like it's the story you tell the children to make them behave. You're like, yeah, no, like that's something you kind of want to edge up to. You don't want to just like right out of the starting gate show the whole thing, because then it's kind of like you were saying, you start at 10 and you have nowhere else to go. But I think one of the points where it does benefit from Stan Winston directing it is him having all of this experience with how the creature itself works and what goes into making the creature. When he does film it, he knows exactly how to light the shit out of that thing. It looks beautiful. And he shoots that shit well.
If you are a filmmaker who wants to know how to shoot prosthetics, how to approach puppets, how to approach animatronics, how to approach this kind of practical effect creature performance. This movie is a textbook of all of the different tricks that can use. There's amazing stuff that Bojan Bazelli, the DP, does with the lighting in order to make the silhouette of Pumpkinhead really pop. There's a lot of really interesting things that they are doing with making the character entirely white, which makes it the opposite of the xenomorph that you get from the Aliens movies. There's a lot of incredible articulation that is going on in the mouth that wasn't possible until the strides forward they had made with Predator. There is so much going on technically in this movie that if you are a filmmaker, if you are a special effects artist, if you are a sculptor, you will find very informative, that you will find very interesting, that is worth checking out, that is worth pursuing the Stan Winston Studios making of information. It's worth your time to seek out all of the making of information, because most of this movie is incredibly simple. And I think that's one of its great strengths, is that it takes advantage of everything a low budget movie can take advantage of. It knows how to use its puppet. It knows when to show it. I would argue it shows it a little too much, but it knows how to milk every dollar out of every puppet. I would say this movie knows how to take advantage of its cast and its locations. You are essentially looking at exterior forest, exterior fruit stand, interior fruit stand, interior cabin, exterior cabin, road. And I think that's it. Oh, and
this was made like on a budget of
it's like $3 million, and then it ended up making it was like 3.5 somewhere in there, and then I want to say it made 4.5 to 5 somewhere in there.
It made a small, tiny profit off of it, not enough to really push it.
It made 50 to 60% profit, which for a Dino De Laurentiis production of the time is actually pretty solid. That's not it made its money back, but it wasn't a swan song. It wasn't. It wasn't a huge movie, but then again, it did spawn, I want to say 4 sequels.
Yeah, 4 sequels in total. And a remake is coming out actually I think a remake is currently in pre-production right now as we speak. I think it got held up due to the whole COVID situation.
I will be very interested to see what they can do, because they're obviously probably not going to be able to out practical the original, in which case I assume we're just going to get a bunch of CGI nonsense, which don't get me wrong. I mean, it is what it is. It becomes that thing of, do you want to do something big and spectacular, which is easier to do with CGI, or do you want to do something more traditional, which you might have to do something smaller in order to do practically, but then you get to say that you did it practically. So we'll see.
Well, I just find that, for example, I think that's what led to films like the prequel to The Thing to just being a hot pile of garbage. You had a director who genuinely wanted to use practical effects, but that for some reason the studio was just like, I know you've already done all the practical effects, but we're just literally going to replace all of that hard work with this CG garbage monster. I hope that the studio fights their better demons and actually goes, because that's the whole point of Pumpkinhead is it's a practical marvel in terms of creature effects. That was the whole point. You can't do a remake of a Stan Winston directed film and just fill it with CG. It seems like an insult.
I mean, it is an insult, and it's probably what they're going to do, but that's where we are. But that does talking about Stan, this movie is so much Stan Winston. Without Stan Winston, this movie doesn't work. Without it, you don't have Pumpkinhead. Without it, so much of the vibe of this movie doesn't work. Something we haven't really talked about actually, and David, if you want to sum this up for the people at home, what's Pumpkinhead about? What's the thing? What's going on?
Well, Pumpkinhead is did we decide what you did this mention what year it takes place? I'm guessing it takes place in the 80s.
It's a non-specific. I mean, obviously there are dirt bikes and stuff, so I would say it's somewhere between like 1975 and 1980 something. I mean, it's released in 1988. Or sorry, well, it's made in 1988. It's released in 1989, which means it's written in like 1986. So
Okay.
it seems to be like it's all shot in Topanga Canyon in Southern California. So, but it's
But it
kind of playing up some sort of like Appalachia hill folk kind of a
Depression era
history.
look.
Yeah, Depression era look, but then again, it's too deserty, really, I think, to really be Appalachia, because Appalachia is rainier than clearly Topanga Canyon. But so yeah, I would say it's non-specific 1970 something and 1980 something.
Okay. So yeah, but to simplify it, we're in the middle of bumfuck nowhere with Lance Henriksen and his son. They are a loving pair. His mother died in childbirth, so it's just Lance Henriksen bringing up his son by himself, who helps run the shop with him. And it's just they live out in the middle of nowhere where their neighbors are a bunch of simple folk who follow a lot of lore, and then enter the asshole city kids on their dirt bikes. And one of them particularly, who has a bit of an attitude problem, was drinking and driving his bike. And
John D'Aquino.
Yes.
Who, yeah, if you look up that guy's IMDb, he has been in 4 episodes of everything. Like, it is wild how, like, the only person who has like a thicker IMDb is the guy who plays the old man, Lee DeBrew, who plays Tom Harley. And like, he has, I'm looking at his IMDb right now.
What was his name? It was John D'Aquino.
John D'Aquino is the douchebag who hits the kid. Lee DeBrew, or Lee DeBrew, I don't know. I'm sorry, France. He is the dad at the very, very beginning.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And he, as an actor, has been in 137 credits.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and like literally, like, he's been in 1 episode of everything, where John D'Aquino has been like in 4 episodes of everything. Like, it would be like, 9 episodes of Jag. Oh, yeah. 4 episodes.
Known for Xena, Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah, Corey in the House. Yeah, a couple episodes of Mentalist, Monk.
So this Third Rock from the Sun asshole runs over his son with his bike, and apparently was drinking and driving, and he's already got a couple of priors, so he decides to flee the scene. And everyone else pretty much does the right thing and tries to like tell the father. Like, one of them stays with the kid and actually takes responsibility for it. But the father is, he lost his son. He's pretty pissed. So he goes to the local witch, which I feel is a thing that city kids don't get to have. They don't get to have a local witch. Only the middle of bumfuck nowhere people get to.
I mean, like, Candyman doesn't Candyman have? I mean, it's not a witch because it's a warlock, right? Because it's Candyman, but like, I don't know. Anyway,
isn't Candyman a ghost of like a? He's a ghost of a slave, isn't he? It's been so long since I've seen. Have you not seen?
I know.
Candyman?
Yeah,
It has been since I've seen it. But.
Yeah, it has been so long that I have not seen Candyman in a minute that I barely remember.
He was seduced by the lady of the house, from what I recall, and was punished horribly for it. And so I think they removed his hand, and I think tortured him with bees. So I think that's where that comes from.
Well, then Shudder, get on your shit, put Candyman out, and then we'll do the thing. Because right now, it's free on Peacock.
Oh boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh boy, indeed.
Everyone
Otherwise,
has
yeah.
Peacock.
Otherwise, the original Candyman is $4.
Yeah. Anytime I see like streaming on Peacock or on Apple, what was it? Apple, their Apple streaming service or whatever.
Wow. Okay. And then the new Candyman is still playing in some theaters.
Wait, is that out now?
I mean,
The new one?
later this month, August
Oh.
26th appears to be the first.
It looks
The
great.
sorry, August 27th is the release date.
Awesome. I will happily go see that. We went on a bit of a tangent.
Anyway, yes. Tangents.
Tangents. So he asks the witch at first, raise my son from the dead. She's like, I can't do that. And he's like, well, can you at least get the bastards that did this to my son? And she's like, sure, here's all the warnings for why you shouldn't do this. He's like, I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyway. And she's like, okay, we're gonna bring this monster to life, and it's gonna torture all the people and kill all the people who are responsible for your son's death. And he's like, great, awesome, sight unseen. She was like, well, actually, what's going to happen is you're going to feel everything that the monster feels as it kills it, which if you are a less than great human being and really, really want some sweet, sweet vengeance, that's a solid little deal that you get. It's like, you mean I don't have to do any of the work, but feel all of the joy from seeing my enemies cast down upon the ground? That sounds amazing. But no, it's only really the innocent ones that kind of get hurt first. And he's like, you know what? I didn't sign up for this, when really he did. And almost immediately goes back to the witch. She's like, take it back. And she's like, I can't. I literally told you that I can't before I did this. And he's like, well, I'm gonna go kill it myself. She's like, okay, I guess go for it. It's gonna probably
good luck with that.
I know. I respect this witch so much in this film, by the way. She's just like, sure, you can just walk into my home and demand things of me. I'm going to literally tell you all the reasons that you shouldn't do this. But sure, I'm going to help you out for like a bunch of money because, witch houses cost, that creepy atmosphere doesn't pay for itself. But then of course, like, the guy literally comes back and she's like, I don't know what to tell you. I literally gave you all of the warnings. I look the way you feel right now. So then he goes out and he's able to rescue one person of that large group of people. He rescues one person by killing himself because he has that psychic link with the creature. Mm-hmm. And then later, his dead body is buried where he dug up the last creature. And so his body will be the next Pumpkinhead, for, I'm guessing, the possible sequels that they hoped would come and did come. Yeah, that's pretty much, that's Pumpkinhead right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like the simplicity of the setup is, I think, what makes Pumpkinhead work so well. There is it's only like 87 minutes, but it takes its time rolling out Pumpkinhead. Yes, you get the opening scene with Pumpkinhead doing the murders at the beginning, but until then, it's about 45 minutes until Lance Henriksen shows up and asks for the witch to make Pumpkinhead a thing. One of the things, actually, I think that was a really a big strength of this was the design of Pumpkinhead Cemetery. I loved the raised bed that he was on. I loved the atmosphere that it had. Bojan Bazelli, who let's be clear, has gone on to have quite the career. He's been Gore Verbinski's kind of go-to guy. He did Cure for Wellness. He did 6 Underground for Michael Bay. He shot Mr. and Mrs. Smith, King of New York for Abel Ferrara. He has done a lot of incredible work. And in this, I think you can really see him stretching the budget, using color, using the different color temperatures available to him with daylight and HMIs and with its tungsten sources in order to create a really interesting look for this film. There is not a lot of straight white light. The yellows are yellow. The oranges are orange. The lantern light is lantern colored. the moonlight is blue. There's almost a Douglas Sirk kind of expressionism to the color in the film that I think is something that you don't see a lot of in low budget films, but one of the films that you do, and I have yet to find confirmation of this other than what I believe is a reference. So one of the films that I thought of immediately when the opening scene for this showed up was Razorback, the Australian giant pig movie.
Yes, you showed you showed.
Yes.
I think we had that up as an option.
Yes, no, absolutely, and it's not one that we've shown yet, but the look of that is absolutely incredible. Russell Mulcahy, the director. Razorback is one of the best examples of a first-time director showing up to set and just kicking the front door in and saying, "Hello, I actually know what I'm doing. Thank you very much. Look how rad everything looks." And like that's like there's just so much good stuff in the opening of Razorback, and there's a certain quality to the there's a certain quality to the exteriors. There's a use of backlight and smoke in this that is very, very akin to Razorback. And normally I would just say, okay, this is something that my brain is seeing. But about 30, what is it? It's a little bit into this movie. They mention that the opening of the movie takes place in Razorback Hollow, which maybe I'm crazy, but I mean, Razorback is like 1986. So this is probably a movie that's going to be hot on its heels. The other movie I think that Stan Winston is channeling a lot in this is the Evil Dead movies, Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2. Mm-hmm. The cabin in the woods vibe to it, the way that they're able to combine the slasher cabin in the woods archetype and setup with the creature feature, I think is a very, very smart screenwriting. And again, another reason why low budget filmmakers and people who are up and coming right now should be checking out a movie like this, because it is really using every part of the buffalo. It is getting every part out of these locations. It is reusing these locations. It is shooting in Topanga Canyon, which is essentially like a public city park. So like getting permits and such is actually not that complicated. And as a result, shooting in one cabin, shooting in this lady's, old timey witch place, it was shooting exterior. Shooting exteriors in this kind of Appalachia old tiny cabin. All this stuff is stuff that can be shot within, a very tight location. And as a result, you're able to get an incredible amount out of a very limited budget. And like that's whether you think Stan Winston showed the creature too much, whether you think he showed it too little, whether you think this movie is effective, whether you think it's not. One of the things that Stan Winston did was put every single dollar on screen.
So what, now correct me if this is wrong, but I had heard during one of the many interviews that I was watching on this, one of the many special features that I checked out, was that the cemetery was actually done on a real bog.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like at least that's what they said, that the lead set designer, along with the cinematographer, agreed that the best lighting needed to be done outside amongst the actual environment that's being shown, with the obvious set dressings and such. But yeah, from what I understand, it was shot in an actual bog, and that was specifically for the cinematographer to get the light that he needed. I would have to let me know if I'm wrong on that. I could easily have misheard him. Could have been like, oh, we tried to make it look as much like a real bog as we possibly could, and I just must have misheard it. We'll see.
So if you're going to build a bog, part of the problem becomes it needs to be like a hypoallergenic bog. If you're going to build a bog on a set, there's a bunch of health and safety stuff that you have to do. where if you go and shoot in a real bog, you can maybe convince the actors to wade into a certain amount of natural locations, and they either will
You guys
or
could
they
just
won't.
deliverance this, please.
But yeah, like you can't build a septic environment, but you can convince an actor to enter a septic environment, and that is one of those weird filmmaking things that's just
Wasn't that a rule that kind of came to be after The Empire Strikes Back, when Luke went to Dagobah?
I mean, I don't know if that's
because there was so much standing. There was so much standing water. It was this huge pool. Because yeah, the set was this giant swamp world, and it was yeah. And then you had Luke Skywalker like walking around and swimming in this stagnant water. And I think they were talking about how by the end of the shoot, there was so much bacteria and so much just disgusting crap in that little pool that it almost became toxic to go into.
That sounds, well, I mean, that sounds completely feasible. I don't know specifically if that was the movie that prodded that along, but I do know that if you watch like the Lord of the Rings making of information, they talk specifically about making like the swamps for Two Towers and for Return of the King. And yeah, all of the work that they had to put in to like circulate the water and the fake algae and such they had to put into the water to make it look like a swamp, but that everybody could run around in. Because like there was the one scene where in Fellowship of the Ring where Sam goes running after the boat that Frodo is pushing into the water. And it just turned out, despite the many sweeps the safety team did, that Sean Astin just stepped on a giant piece of glass that like impaled his foot. And like they had to shut down shooting for like a day or change while he got a couple of stitches, because that's what happens when you're shooting in the real world. Yeah, exactly. And it's just one of those. It comes with shooting on location.
Yeah. And I'm also, I think a lot of I have to give huge compliments to the actor or the actress who played the witch haggis, which sounds like a Scottish cuisine. Florence Schaffler. God damn, these names are fun. But God, how old was she? She was she was an old lady. People were saying like, oh, perhaps she was younger. Well, she died in 2017 and she was born in 1920. So yeah, she
wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But she you would know her obviously for Pumpkinhead, but then she was in films like Bachelor Party, Problem Child, Simon and Simon. But she made good use of those makeup effects. And my God, like not only is Pumpkinhead incredibly impressive, but just the character Haggis alone, those makeup effects of making her look like this withered old witch that's been around for over a century. It's unbelievably impressive. And then I do, at some point before we finish this, I do want to talk a little bit about Lance Henriksen.
Oh, of course.
Because he's another one of those cogs in this machine that I feel are completely essential to it working. He looks like his environment. And I think he was fresh. Had he done Near Dark by this point?
Yes, he had done Near Dark. He had done Aliens. He had worked extensively with Stan Winston and James Cameron. Lance Henriksen is a really interesting example of an actor who has had a very both popular but never breakout career. Mm-hmm. He has been the lead of a lot of movies for a lot of borderline straight to video stuff, a lot of stuff that is well known in the community, but is not a hit. And then he's also had a lot of what I will call with Lance Henriksen movies, where if you've ever seen the way that they lay out the credits, there's everybody who's in the movie. Yes. And then featuring or with, and then, the person who has actually a bit of a career, who has a bit of a name. And yeah, and this is another great example where he's great in this movie. He brings so much gravitas. He has the face of a person who is going to ask for revenge of a demon, where there's a lot of actors where you'd be like, you're too pretty for that. You wouldn't go deal with some old witch lady. Like, come on. Like, Matthew McConaughey is not going to go and do this.
He's in this, at least his character that he plays is the perfect example of show, don't tell. Everything that you need to get from this character, every emotion that you need is told in a look. You don't need to see him in a fit of anguish and rage. I love, like, I do remember, like, one of the things that I did remember from this film, watching on the Sci-Fi Channel, I did not remember a whole lot from it. I didn't remember any of the deaths. I didn't remember any of that. What I do remember is the look that Lance Henriksen gives one of the city kids, the city kid who stayed with his boy, who I don't think was dead by that point.
Yeah.
But he just sees the son. He goes over, not even saying a word to him, picks him up and just takes him away, not saying a word to the city kid. And the city kid is like, hey, like, can I help in any way? Just looks back at him. The look that he gives him is pure, say one word, like, say one more word and I will cut your fucking throat.
Absolutely.
Like it is the perfect example of show, don't tell. And he does this, there's a great little moment, like at the beginning, that I think really cements the relationship with his son, where he's washing his son's hands. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how his grandmother would wash his hands and how her hands were, her skin was like tissue paper and it would feel like really, really nice. That was actually added by Lance. That was a little thing that he pitched to Stan Winston because it's a memory that he remembers from his grandmother. And he just like, you know what? Like, I feel like this really cements the relationship with my son. This creates that kind of history between the two of us. It also creates a sort of a family lineage. You feel like his people have been there for generations.
It's this scene from Jaws, which I will argue till the day that I die is the most important scene in Jaws, where Roy Scheider sits down with his son and they just stare at each other. And while the mom is talking on the phone, he's going like this and his son goes like this and he goes like this and his fingers go down. And in that moment, you're like, oh my God, if anything happens to this dad, I'm going to burn the theater to the ground. If you touch Roy Scheider, I will kill you, because they are so cute together. And that scene is exactly this. Now, David, yes. Before we take off here tonight, there was one actress that I didn't like. It took me a minute to realize who she was. But did you recognize the incredibly famous actress who is one of the Appalachia kids, for lack of a better term? One of the kids of the family that recommends to Lance Henriksen the lady who gives him Pumpkinhead.
I scrolled down the list, and why don't you just
Mayim Bialik, baby? That's Blossom.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's a redneck Blossom who, if you are younger, you will probably know her from Big Bang Theory and Young Shelton, if you like to hate yourself. But if you are cool in Gen X, you will know her from Blossom. But yeah, Mayim Bialik is just, and it was one of those, I didn't even realize it at first. And I was like, wait, hang on. I recognize that nose. Hold on. And then I looked it up and yeah, sure enough, one of her earlier roles.
Huh. That is, God damn it. Get it. Small world, small fucking world.
Now, David, do you have anything else to say about Pumpkinhead before we discuss what's going to happen next week?
Like one more little thing. I think, and it's kind of a critique on the movie. I would say it's a little bit of a critique on the movie, and it's the kills. I think there's really only one legit, really gruesome, decent kill in this, and that's the one with Maggie where he pushes her head through the window.
Yeah.
I think that's where you get the most. Like the monster Pumpkinhead looks amazing, and I think the film, which is only 86 minutes long, could have really done with a little bit more character development around this creature. Because I think it really it scratched the surface of something that I found interesting. For one thing, like the features of the creature were made to look similar to Lance Henriksen, which I found that to be very interesting. I found that to be like, okay, that really shows this connection that the two of them have. And I just feel like a lot of the kills could have been a little bit more creative and a little bit like, this is literally like the demon, almost like the demon god of revenge. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of that. And from what I understand, a lot of the sequels kind of suffer from the same thing, where there's like one, maybe two solid creepy-ish kills, but outside of that, it's kind of basic bitch.
I would say this film is like a really solid double. It's not going to blow your mind, but it 100% puts guys on base. It 100% scores. Like it 100% is worth checking out. It's worth watching the mechanics. Is it the greatest thing that you're ever going to see? No. Is it mind-blowing? No. But what it does really, really well. Every ingredient is impressive.
Yeah.
Even if all of the ingredients together don't do anything that's like mind-blowing or new. What it does very, very well.
Yeah. I will say there is something special about the idea that there is really only one villain in this outside of Pumpkinhead, and it is the dude that runs over his son.
Yeah, 100%.
And he gets to watch all the people close or semi-close to him killed off, all of whom are completely innocent in this, which I find, and some people were complaining about how quickly Lance Henriksen kind of turned on what he was doing, like on this whole revenge thing, decided he didn't want to do it. But like, I think once he realized that, oh no, like really only one guy is to blame for this. And because of this pact that I've made, all of these innocent people who were just kind of bystanders and got wrapped up in this are suffering the consequences. I thought that was a really interesting theme that they were touching on. I also appreciate that in one of the sequels, for example, there's the plot of that, like the plot of all the sequels, by the way, not bad. Like they stick to the lore. They don't go way out of left field. They actually not only stick to the lore, they build on it a little bit. There's the idea of like getting caught up in the curse. And it's that, these guys accidentally unleash Pumpkinhead in the sequel. And so Pumpkinhead goes out and kills all of these people who wronged somebody literally like 20 to 25 years prior. And so I just like, okay, that's actually interesting. It's like this woman wanted to bring Pumpkinhead to life, but didn't quite get through the whole process. And then these guys kind of finished it for her. And so Pumpkinhead's like, oh, that took a while. I guess I'm going to go do the job that I was supposed to do. And they're like, wait, what?
It's one of the few curse movies that really shows that the curse cuts both ways. It's not just like, oh, well, things end up a little bad for you, but you get what you want. Like, oh no, Lance Henriksen has to experience the awfulness of the revenge. And it ends up being more than he wanted, despite the fact that he hates the city folks who ran over his kid. He realizes he doesn't want this, which is just not something you see in a lot of these films. Most of the time when it comes to a revenge thing, it's like, well, yes, but you have to pay with your life. And this isn't the case there. This is just like, no, but this is excruciating.
There's also a really, really bad cutting the hand effect where you can actually see the tube that's spitting out the blood.
Well, okay, yes. I mean, not everything's going to be a winner.
But no, this is a franchise that definitely is. There are some franchises that I think, you know what, that could use a remake. I would love to see them take what worked with the last one and enhance it.
If the person who's making it has an interesting idea, I'm all for it. I would be shocked if that's what's happening, but who knows? We will find out. David, question for you. Do you have any plugs for the people at home if they want to find your plugs and plug them?
Oh, absolutely. You can find us on our Instagram page at Shutter_show, which is the page that I run. We will not be doing a poll this time around because our next episode will be the Freaky Friday.
It's number 40, the 40th episode.
Oh, 40, baby. But yeah, no. So, but you can also, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you can also find me at _DW Marlowe. But Ken, where can the people find you, good sir?
They can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Ken Stachnik, KenStachnik. They can find my dog at Freddy Potatoes, both on Twitter and Instagram as well. They can find us on Instagram at Shutter Show, SHUDDERSHOW, no underscore, just Shutter Show. But if you want to get a hold of us, your best bet is definitely on Instagram. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, good night, good luck, and most importantly, what?
What movie are we watching next?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, next week is Freaky Friday. David, what movie are we watching next week? What is it? You tell me. You're in charge.
Okay, Kenneth.
I have less stuff to do.
Yes, Ken. Yeah, our Freaky Friday, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's where I do all the research and I get to pick the movie straight out, and I get to do all the research and do all the fun work and just really talk my head off about it. And we are going to do the one that I really wanted to do for like the last episode, which was I Saw the Devil. And that, Ken, I'm so fucking excited for this one. It is a goddamn just masterpiece.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Directed by Ji Woon Kim.
Hell yes. Well, until then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, good night, good luck, and most importantly,
go get vaccinated, you fuckers.
Absolutely. Wash your goddamn hands. Good night, everyone.